Welcome back, everybody. Hello, LEC community, and good afternoon. We are here for Platica of the week. It looks a little different this week because we know that some of you may be observing the long weekend. And so we thought, why not do our Platica of the week on Thursday instead of tomorrow? So as I mentioned with Connie, if you were on, look at this. Like all here, I have poison ivy. So fun times. It's also all over my arms. You can't see. There we go. So it is now my excuse moving forward to not help my husband with yard work. So that's kind of an A+ for me. But I have poison ivy really bad. I've been putting this stuff on. You might recognize it. The smell reminds me of childhood because like the last time I had poison ivy, I was a kid, I think. I don't know. Anyway, we're here for our Platica of the week, and our Platica this week was all around an article from Teaching Tolerance that teaching kindness isn't enough. Make sure to engage with us in the comments and let me know what you think as we go through this Platica. And then we will, see what you think. This is our community part of it. So let me know. Teaching kindness isn't enough. I love that this is an article because I think the narrative in education often is that, you know, if we are just kind to each other, then the world would be solved. And that really just isn't the case, right? We have seen in the last few months, few weeks, really for some of us in a lifetime, that regardless of how nicely you treat other people, there is the chance that they not treat you nicely. And so kindness not being the solution for everything is something that has to be a narrative with our kiddos. So in the article, she starts out by talking about Dr. Seuss, which I know a lot of people have come out to say is problematic, and she agrees, the author here. Brett Turner, that white supremacy lurks in the pages of many Seuss's books. The foundation of the easy-to-spot morals of the stories were disturbing depictions of people of color and racialized non-human characters. So the questions: how could these racist ideas exist alongside such valuable lessons and alongside with kindness? So Dr. Seuss is largely accepted as an author to learn kindness from and to teach kindness from. But some of the kind of hidden narratives and hidden things that happen in his publications are often at the demise of people of color and these racialized non-human characters. Brett talks about how educators, especially elementary educators, do have the task of teaching kindness, right? In kindergarten and in preschool and in first grade, and even throughout elementary school. It's about how to treat each other well and how to treat each other with kindness. This is not to negate that kindness should be taught, because it's a part of living in our society, right? Is treating each other well. But it's not enough. And I love where Brett went with this, because he said that young children are not just developing a sense of morality. They're not just learning how to be good people. They're not just learning how to be nice to each other. They're also developing a sense of who they are. So a sense of identity. I just realized you could totally, completely see my board now. My niece, who I need to talk to about how to spell congratulations. They're still super excited about the baby. So that's what that's about. So young children are not just developing a sense of morality. They're developing their identity. They're noticing how they're different from each other. They're noticing how they're the same from each other. And they're wondering, right? They have questions about who they are, and who other people are, and how that relates to them. I've been doing a lot of research and just a lot of, I've been exposing myself more about anti-racism in kids. I'm pregnant with our first baby, and so it's important for me in my anti-racism journey to also include elements into our lives, into our son's upbringing of how to raise anti-racist kids. And something that I've learned in the last couple weeks is that the first inclinations that kiddos have that we are different is actually around 6 months old. So you've seen these articles lately. I'm so itchy. You've seen these articles lately that will say how soon is too soon to talk to kids about race. Kids at the age of 6 months are starting to notice that people have different colors of skin. That's something that I just learned. As their eyesight gets better, and as they really are just examining all the things that are around them, they're starting to notice darker skin, lighter skin, and just noticing it. At that age, they're not making any associations yet. They're not forming any opinions based on color. They are starting to notice color, though. And so one of the tips, I believe, my learning was partly from Ibram Kendi and the Anti-Racist Baby book. And Leslie, who we had on Tuesday for LEC Live from Latinx Parenting, shout out to her. I also did the Raising Anti-Racist Kids with Latinx Parenting. And so that learning merged, helped me see that kids have to be exposed to different races and abilities and languages at around 6 months. That's when they're starting to notice those differences. And so the more that we can have differences in the books that we're reading to them, even at 6 months, 8 months, a year old, the books that we're reading to them and exposing them to, the shows that they're watching, the media that they are exposed to, as much differences as they can see, the better. They will be more comfortable with having those conversations, and hopefully you're exposing them to those conversations as well. Then in my learning, I've also learned that at 2 years old, around 1.5 to 2 years old to 2.5 is when they start to associate as a parent, your opinions and inclinations about race. So usually in regards to skin color, they aren't at that age yet saying, okay, this is a Black person, this is a Latinx person, right? But the skin colors and how you are reacting to those skin colors, they're starting to pick up on at the age of 2. So this article talking about school age means that we as teachers, as primary teachers, as elementary school teachers, definitely have the responsibility of having those conversations, and that being a part of our curriculums, along with kindness. So anyway, Brett Turner talks about they're not only developing a sense of morality, they're developing a sense of who they are. Who they are includes race, gender, class, what they look like, what others look like. These identities have never been treated or represented equally in our society. So kids in classrooms with their lack of or exposure to different people of color in their books, in the videos we're showing them at school, though they start to build on those experiences to say, okay, well, oftentimes when we're reading about XYZ, I'm seeing white characters. Or oftentimes when we're learning about XYZ, I'm seeing Black characters. So being really intentional about making sure that all the media that we're exposing our kids to isn't contributing to a racist system, right? So the second section of the article, if you have it in front of you, building a more just curriculum. This is something that I am learning about this summer. I think as an educator, I had some of that teaching at the Institute for Urban Education, but really digging deep into our curriculums and our standards to understand how to be more just in the things that we teach. Brett talks about the first step is making space in the curriculum for the difficult realities of systemic injustice. That may be difficult for educators when when or if we're not willing to have that uncomfortability and have those conversations. It says it's easy to study the civil rights movement and cherry pick quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King that focus on everyone getting along. But we can also show students that his famous speech, imagining a world where children are judged by the content of their character, is also the one in which he refuses half measures toward equity, saying, no, we are not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. That last quote, I don't recognize, because oftentimes we're hearing that by the intent of their character, and I have a dream in those parts of his speeches that kind of promote that kindness part, like let's teach this kindness, let's be kind to each other. But what about the fact that he also spoke up against injustice and said, you know what, we're not satisfied. We're not going to be satisfied until there's a justice system. The author talks about how in his classes, instead of whitewashing heroes, he wants to paint a more detailed picture. They're flawed, human, ambitious, and organized. So students deserving fuller stories of Dr. Martin Luther King, of Gandhi, Rigoberta Menchú, and others who practice nonviolence while working for justice. But building a just curriculum isn't about teaching history in a responsible way. It's also about ensuring that all of our students are represented in our studies and that they are all respected in our classrooms. So first, being respected means being seen, means being heard, and means being listened to. To respect our students is to see them for human beings, the human beings that they are, and understanding that they all come from different facets of life, regardless of their identities, right? And so not making assumptions about our kiddos, not leading with our stereotypes and biases. We all hold stereotypes and biases that we were either raised with, we grew up with, or that we kind of have gathered just in our adulthood, right? So addressing those and being comfortable with saying sorry, being comfortable with saying that you don't know or that you don't understand. Brett Turner goes on to say that when being considerate, nice, and friendly is all children learn about how to treat one another, we risk losing something fundamental. One year, a student asked me, is it okay to be really ticked off that all of our parents have been men? He told her, yes, of course it was. And she wrote a long, furious letter to the president's house demanding change. She said, the letter isn't very nice, but it's what I feel. And so that in and of itself, first of all, our kids' interpretation of nice, right? Depending maybe on their age or their upbringing, thinking about what nice means. But then also giving them the space to say, you have real emotions and you have real experiences that lend to your opinions and to your emotions. And so let that be a part of who you are. The last part of the article talks about creating a culture of justice. Moving away from simple kindness and towards real justice begins with building an identity-safe classroom. Being safe, being who you are in the classroom. That should be foundational, fundamental. I know that there are classrooms that I have been a student in. I know there are classrooms that I have been a teacher in, where identity, it wasn't always safe to be of certain identities. And so that being the foundation of our classrooms is really important. Our kids being comfortable to be who they are. And yeah, so moving on. Brett Turner talks more about the protagonists and who the protagonists are in our stories. And who often the antagonists are in our stories. So with that end in mind, I didn't just encourage students to engage with justice, I codified it. Like many other teachers, I worked with children to make rules and agreements at the beginning of the year. Too often, though, he says, they lack teeth. So be wise, be kind, make wise choices, and respect all people. But What about offering an opportunity to challenge our young ones to do more, he says. Guiding students toward true allyship by encouraging them to think carefully about justice and our responsibility to it. What do we agree if one of us is misgendered? What do we agree if one of us is called a slur? How will we react if one of us is excluded because of their skin color, their accent, or body shape? So heftier agreements, he says, speak up when we see microaggressions. How dope would it be to walk into a classroom and the kids first of all, know what a microaggression is and know how to respond to them? That's what our classrooms should be for, right? Is that kind of building. Another heftier agreement, he says, fix the mistakes that really hurt our classmates. Both of those agreements, especially that last one, isn't something that our kids can't understand. Fix the mistakes that really hurt our classmates. So making sure, just making our agreements a little bit more of substance in order to protect our kiddos and their identities. Young people need language to combat microaggressions, and they also need to know that their teachers care about it. So there's nothing wrong with answering injustice with easy reassurances like we just need to be kind to one another. But our kids know, especially as they get older, that there's more to justice than just being nice to each other and just being kind to each other. It's about calling out those microaggressions, calling out when things don't feel fair and why. But also us as educators, equipping them with that language, right? They need to know that there are trusted adults that will speak up, facilitate, and engage. There's nothing wrong with taking a moment to say, that didn't feel right, and I need to circle back to this. So adults, teachers, educators, please know that you are a resource for our kiddos. They're learning kindness from us. They're learning how to share from us. They're learning how to be respectful of to one another from us. But on top of that, they also need to be learning and coding the language that means justice and the language that means true fairness and true anti-racism. That is part of our responsibility in educators. I hope the article and Platica for this week was helpful in getting you there. Have a good long weekend if you're having a long weekend. If you are joining in the festivities, please be safe. If you're not joining the festivities, please be safe. We will see you on Monday for the coalition. Thank you, everyone, and have a good weekend. Bye.